all I need to say there. So let's move on to the ZAR chart itself. And this was the move that occurred. This is a weekly chart, so it's macro. All this has happened officially in the last few days. All I'd heard a couple of weeks ago, in fact, a month and a half ago, this news of his feeling of concern. Many will say it's because he's bitter and he's being picked out politically. Don't just put it all down to that. I would say, as a businessman who loves and grew up in that country and is proud and probably used to get that nugget gevoel in his hole at the same time he sung his anthem and loved the Springboks, is problem. Now, I'm talking about this technically, and I don't like it. I sense up leg, continuation. Some will call it pennant. There may be what we call HVF structure. We're discussing this in our community over here where you could become part of it if you wanted. This is in our FX and commodity general chat. We have specific setups where we talk about the Rand itself. You can see how that is all laid out. But anyway, going back to the chart, this is looking like weakness. And this is looking weakness with a debt downgrade, and things escalate quick once you get a downgrade because your existing debt gets more expensive as well because they pump up your rates. Any future debt that you want to get is going to be more expensive, so they're going to print money. They're going to have to print money. Inflation is going to come. There already is a lot of inflation in South Africa. I've already mentioned the energies and other things that are getting expensive. Anything imported in a devaluing Rand obviously goes up in cost. Now I'm going to take you into the one thing that's in the Rand's favor that has had correlation. And that is the fact that we are a precious metals bull. Let's just see current global gold output by country, because I want to highlight this. At one point in the world, South Africa was number one, and that was a long time ago. No longer. We'll take the CIA's database in the form of Wikipedia as probably being somewhat factual in terms of this particular requirement, and we will discuss it here. You will see number 7, previously number 1. That's your Rand. 1 ZAR bought you $2 in the 70s when that was at number 1. Now, other way around, 1:14. So actually, $1 used to get 0.5 Rand, and now it's 14. A 28 times loss in value from the 70s. In a dollar, that is losing 97% of its value since the Fed was created in 1913. So you're talking about someone who slips down the whirly-girly toilet to shit pan faster than an already well-established turd. Okay. Anyway, on the gold count, 6 reserve metric tons are high, but current gold production 145. I'd like to see that verified. That could be stolen off us very, very quickly. But 145 a year to China's 440. If they're telling the truth, I think they're probably understating and hoarding like gangbusters. They know they have to. They know that dollar will fail. Australia 300. Russia coming in ahead of United States. I thought Canada was doing better than that. I wonder when this was done. The list of countries by 2017. Maybe Wikipedia is behind the times here. But the key point is SA ain't number 1 anymore. It's way down in number 7. So here we go. China, when was this dated? This is also 2017. So it's not going to be any more accurate than what we had. So we'll go back to old CIA list. So at number 7, it's not as strong as it used to. But look at this chart with gold on it. So the overall part of the country is going down the pan. It's being Africanized, and they've not shown the ability to plan for the future, roll out energy plans, develop it, keep the state-owned enterprise properly capitalized. They've been stolen out completely and largely bankrupted. So there's nothing but theft and lack of competence generally as a whole. What's happened here? So Rand was losing value while gold was flat and drifting off. Let's cover this. This is a monthly chart, and there's 2 lines on here. What I've done is I've put the Rand in the candles chart I've put it there, and I've inverted that chart. So instead of it being something that's going up because $1 buys more rands, I've inverted it because I want to show you the gold, which is a normal chart, the gold in the gold color. Okay, so what's happened is while gold was flat and going down, the socio-political elements of the rand weighed on it, and they're terrible, and there's a risk of Zimbabweification. So that's, we all know how that ends. They've gone for the land theft option to take back what they believe was already theirs, as if that was never bought legally, couldn't be respected. So what you've got is gold was drifting and going down, and this was the 99 Brown bottom. Gordon Brown dumping all of Britain's gold allegedly at the bottom of the market. Well timed him. I'm sure the people that were the buyers appreciated it, and that it was probably coordinated. The biggest theft from the British public that's probably ever taken place in one decision. That today at $200 now you're talking, we're at $1,400. That money would have been worth 7 times at current value and going to go higher. But anyway, that's a brown bottom, and then you didn't really move strongly. You're here, 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 and you started turning here. During this point, the politics just collapsed. So there was already concern. That takes you up to 2001. There was already concern. Then we had the gold precious metals run. And this was here. Right up to there, the rand did great. But then the socio-political elements even worked against the booming gold market. So the booming gold market couldn't stop that rand fall away from here. Now, if you're wondering what that was, it was around 5.5 to the rand in and around 2005. And then it collapsed to, so this is the currency, 12. So you've more than doubled at that low, in spite of the fact that gold that you produce was going horrendously up. But part of that, let's clear that, was the great financial crisis, which was flight to the dollar and the emerging markets getting dumped of FX currencies. So this was particularly amplified by that one event, but the rand was certainly not in good condition to withstand it. So during the great financial crisis, gold also dipped during that period, and that coincided with around about that point there down to there. As gold recovered and they went into QE, gold made new highs. Rand failed to make new highs, so it's not about just the gold, but the gold saves it a little bit in bull market conditions. Look what happened when gold deflated from its $1,927 level all the way down to its 1,050 level. So it basically almost halved, lost 45% down there. What did the rand do? It went from its highs near the gold highs, see that high there and its highs there, highs of strength, remember. So this is weakness for the rand. I've inverted the USD ZAR. With the gold sell-off, you get real weakness. That hit an all-time low of 18.5. $1 bought 18.5 rand as we were hitting 1,050. Now you got a snapback rally as gold hit the 2016 low. This was China. So the one thing standing in your way for being the big easy short, and the warning I give to you if you choose to short the rand, because the news is not going to get better, they're going to antagonize the biggest businessman in the world. They've already done that with SARS inquiries, whilst he says he pays the highest tax with his 2 companies over the next 15 or 20 companies. He can move overseas. His companies can operate overseas. He can sell luxury Cartier and Montblanc pens to Parisians, New Yorkers, and he doesn't have to worry ever again about South Africa, despite being a South African and passionate and patriotic. So he can continue to make money. But what happened to the rand is it did get a bit of a rally on the 2016 lows that came with a huge amount of debt being added to China. And this was the China crapping the bed moment. And that made quantitative easing come back into the frame and super low interest rates, which means a bump in gold. And that's why we're getting it here. So the key aspect about this rand trade, and I will now show you the rand chart the correct way round, is that this is probably going to lead to the rand weakening, but it may not be the full-blown melt-up. In short, you might get an opportunity to trade this fractal of a pennant to the upside at some point in the not too distant future before 2020 comes in, or early part of 2020 as it comes, or maybe sooner in the next month or two, 2 months, 3 months. We'll see how it develops. But the overall macro move, which I'm expecting, is probably going to, when gold gets strong, bring it back down again and create an even bigger continuation pattern for the real loss of value, which by that time, I think everybody is going to be wetting the bed. Everybody is going to be dying, and this will probably synchronize the overall melt up of Rand with overall debt failure globally. And it could start with emerging markets and then go to everyone else. And we could get a bit of dollar milkshake theory. If you don't know what that means, YouTube it. But all the assets running to the dollar, apart from that which is escaping into gold, Bitcoin, and all the non-fiats by those that are realizing there's a new game coming. Okay, so this overall setup could then lead first to the emergence dropping. Now, my call for that is 21 and 22. In other words, 21 is a by 7 number. We failed in 07. We had a late wetting of the bed, kind of end of 15 into 16. Not particularly to do with 7, but it was slightly extended that cycle. And now we're going to be at 2021. And since 16, we've had another kind of 6 years, and I think that 16 came a bit late. China was building for everyone. They went from very low debt to very high debt, and now all the major nations are synchronized in a debt-infested shell game that will see the whole world vacillate and then transition to a new world financing solution that they've already planned for you, in my view, that is coming. And this collapse will be painful, and it will be bigger than 2008. And you can expect emerging markets to potentially be slightly earlier and be the lead steers. So we'll be watching this. But that's a possible Rand trade. Now, what was that dark aspect that I was referring to? I have a concern. That this New Zealand kind of, it's a white nationalist, the one who went via Israel and was really methodical and, kind of had magazines left in the synagogues already that he was it synagogues or Muslim mosques before he even arrived there. When you looked at the film, it's illegal to look at the film. Don't do it. Don't look at it. I wouldn't know. Anyway, all of those things is that there is, in fact, an agenda to create open season against particularly the white male. So this whole identity politics. So quick explanation of my take on identity politics. The whole game is to give rank and greater authority or moral credence to people that have differences. So the lowest rank is white male, then potentially white female, along with person of color male, all the way through. Then you need to add a little bit. If you're gay, you are higher. If you're a white male and gay, you have a higher rank. If you're prepared to talk about being transgender and transitioning, you gain a higher rank still. There's been some crazy stuff with the LGBT flag being told to add a black and a brown color for people of color in it, and they're resisting it. So now we're getting the gayness is being subordinated by the race. So race is the ultimate trump card. But if you could be and identify as a black female hunchback that is in a transgender state, I reckon you rule the world. You'll certainly rule the media waves. But anyway, all of this fun aside, my concern is really a bit worrying. There is a desire to create these these antifas, and this left is extremely aggressive in the left world right now. This craziness about creating umpteen genders, it's being fueled, it's being pressed. You have to think in the drama triangle, you get the victim and the perpetrator. Someone is set up as the perp, aka, let's say, white maledom in South Africa, which has a history of race problems through the apartheid era, where there were sins committed without doubt. You have the victim, and then there's a silent third party, and I am leaving it to you to identify who that is. That is the orchestrator, and they keep saying, he did this to you, you should do him back. And what tends to happen is false flags occur. Some of the aspects of that New Zealand attack didn't ring particularly clean with me. So I have a concern to create an aggressive move against Europeans in Europe, indigenous Europeans that would identify as white, some of the larger, now bigger, almost apartheid by economics immigrant areas might be set on other white areas in an aggressive way, because generally the whites are peaceful in Europe. Same for America. And they might trigger this. It's okay to attack and kill using the minority, the disempowered politically minority. There's no white party anymore. The DA maybe, it's run by a black guy. It's not got any influence in South Africa. They're making it harder for them to get self-protection guns. You have to reapply for your licenses. There's almost no reason, unless you're a hunter, to do it. You've got to be a member of a club. All sorts of things getting really hard for whites to own firearms. It was a lot easier then, and we don't have a history of people being drugged up and going and shooting up schools at all. But for some reason, they're being disarmed. And I fear that they will utilize an old school Eugene de Blanche, ideally with an Afrikaans type name, a Suiderlander member or something like this. Those are guys that are setting up protection for farmers and want to protect themselves in case of a race-based onslaught. There's land before death, Black Lives, land before death type groups. There's very, very radical elements that are not calling for a genocide yet, meaning it's just a matter of timing rather than a matter of we will do it. And what might end up occurring to get this narrative out, because I'm taking the long way around, is that they will create a false flag event where someone of an Afrikaner extraction potentially may be set up to do a certain deed that would be loathsome and racial of note and involve shooting on a crowd, for example, by a bus, by a taxi rank, etc. And there'll be an instantaneous, as minute this hits the wavelength, backlash of already pre-prepared. Cops will be giving out their guns to anyone of color to go on a shooting spree at everyday people coming out of schools, picking up their kids, going around malls, and that there will be a race-based attack. The problem we have is that South African whites are now in a weak position. Apart from financial capital, of which the currency is being devalued away, they're a minority. The police is no longer a white force. It's a largely black and colored force. The army is now a black and colored force. Their empathies and sympathies will be very clear, delineated by color. They see everything through race. Just go view the Cameroonian women's soccer team wanting to leave the team because they got twice called offside, and a called offside goal by England was then reinstated by VAR. How it was a racist to play the offside rule. Just go see that mentality, a strong victim mentality. So you then have all of these political, you have a touch light fire. So the wrong spark can create exactly what you want. If you pre-warn certain forces to react real slow and take a while about getting there, it's easy for a lynch mob to run riot for an extended period. There aren't cameras there. And I just fear that that will then be a permissioning event to escalate anti-white sentiment the world over. And it could be false flag driven by those that control. Think of the three circles who sits at the top of a triangle seeking to pit one force against another. I hope to be wrong. I hope that's a very dark prophecy that I've made that just simply never comes. But I sit there holding thumbs, and I'm worried they're isolating business, particularly white business. The narrative is he's dominating capital because he's successfully selling goods overseas. So let's see what happens. The one thing that may save the long-term rand for now is the gold. That was the key message of this chart. So we had a bit of technical analysis, we had a bit of narrative, a bit of business leader. So this sell-off here, there was nothing holding up the rand during that period. It was a dark period as well. But in the same way over here, if gold is weak, the rand can fall through the floor. Gold gives support, it can be held up for a while. So there is a correlation, but it's not a full-blown causation. And we've had periods even here, note the rand up top there. Let me grab my pen again. That's still devalued all the way, even prior to the 2008, before 2008 came out. So let's clear that one more time. You had a point there where the rand was 5.5. Prior to, when we were chundling along merrily at 2007 and halfway through 2007, we'd lost ground already. even during a period where gold had gone from $400 to its high of just under 900. You're talking about a doubling of gold. We still weren't able to get traction there. So this is a country's currency that is on the slide, but for being a producer of metals, I don't know quite what we've got that we deliver that is of value. Sad but true at the moment. Nice tourist destination. Please go out there. It could get real cheap. Don't get me wrong. You'll have a great time. You'll have great tourism. And it will be cheap and the people will be broadly friendly. But, you know, there's a security risk in certain areas and it adds risk to the currency. With that, I'll love you and leave you. If you want to find out more about these kind of studies that we do and what we look, comparative analysis, gold, silver, you think it's interesting for an FX trade, a crypto trade, who knows? By the way, crypto, Bitcoin is often traded at a premium in the Rand and did so immensely. When Bitcoin was around $3,500, it was 12,500 in Zimbabwe. So for the South Africans, you need to think about crypto exposure to protect yourself from currency. You also need to think about offshore exposure. I know how SARS is. They want to know anything. You've got to decide if you're playing straight with them or not, but maybe you need to think about currency offshore. And you could do worse than buy gold. It may be the thing in dollar value that goes up in dollar value that'll beat your Rand. Okay, that's me done. It's a long clip. Thanks for bearing with me. Enjoy your weekend. This is Francis, the Reset Sniper. Part 1, 2, or 3. I might have to break it up. We'll catch you on the other side talking markets and hoping that everything plays out okay in the beloved homeland and nothing strikes from out the blue. Bye for now.